Okay, it has been a little while since I did a DC movie idea, and to continue this particular story I've already created for my first 6 or so films, we are now moving into the Justice League movie idea. This is one of my many ideas, but this is an idea that will of course tie into what I've already been creating. Just a small, quick recap. As we have already seen within these past couple of movie pitches, the Justice League has slowly but surely been forming, and in the background, Lex Luthor has been developing a team of his own, in which I showed in the Trinity film, he was trying to get out of prison in his own ways. He was getting Giganta to go around and find future members of what will be the Legion of Doom. From where I first started this with the Superman movie idea to where we are now, there has probably been, give or take, 6 to 8 months that have happened in this world. And there has been a lot of things that have happened, which I will probably reference some things as I talk about this movie idea. Where it begins is with Lex Luthor, now free from prison and mental health care from Arkham Asylum, running his own private villain squad, or the Legion of Doom. And they raid a governmental science base that is housing a very particular person. So here's part of the squad as of right now. And I did have this end credit scene at the end of the Trinity where Giganta would see the specific people that Lex Luthor wanted her to go out and find. It would involve Lex Luthor, Giganta, Captain Cold, the Shade, and Scarecrow. Now, when raiding this base and breaking in, it is only Lex Luthor, Shade, Giganta, and Captain Cold together. And this very particular base that they are raiding is housing Martian Manhunter. And to give you this picture or this idea in your head, it is in the very similar location that Martian Manhunter was being kept secret in the Justice League animated series in those first 3 episodes. So they are somewhere up in the mountains, up in some snowy Alps, where it's very secretive, very private. When they break in, they essentially kill everybody inside, and they cut off the communication center so that nobody can receive word from that center, and that nobody would even think that anything is going wrong. Having the past couple of months to plan his revenge on Batman and Superman, and now the Justice League, he's had plans that have fallen through and plans that have worked. For example, a plan that has fallen through is trying to get his hands on the Mirror Master technology, which the Flash owns right now. So one of Luthor's biggest plans that is currently working right now is finding Martian Manhunter. He has studied this alien that has come from Mars for years. He's known that the government has been secretly working on this alien and trying to figure out what type of properties he has. And Lex Luthor figures out that he has a mind control property. Lex Luthor wants to try and get Martian Manhunter to side with him, and if not, he will create some sort of brainwashing device that makes Martian Manhunter fight with the Legion of Doom, which I'll just tell you right now, Martian Manhunter will not want to side with him. Giganta and Captain Cold will stay behind at the facility with Lex Luthor, and Shade is ordered to Gotham. Next, you would see Batman in the cave with Alfred, where Alfred is essentially talking to him about how the past couple of weeks have been very intense and very busy. Batman has been cleaning up the streets of Gotham at a faster rate than usual, all while coming across a lot of his future rogues gallery. He at this point has already had a run-in with Catwoman, so much so that he has already discovered her identity, Selina Kyle. He's even heard rumblings of other villains like Bane or the Riddler, and he's even already dealt with Mr. Freeze, albeit not Mr. Freeze inside of the suit with a huge freeze gun, but Mr. Freeze who has lost his mind over the potential death of his wife and caused a street-wide explosion explosion from a science building in the middle of Gotham. And that explosion being a frozen explosion, which still has a piece of Gotham under ice for the past 2 weeks. So as they're talking about quite a few things that have already happened, Alfred looks on the news to see what is happening in Metropolis. Now we go to Metropolis, where Superman is hovering over the city. It's getting later. It's around 6 p.m. And at the very top of the Lex Luthor Tower emits a massive EMP explosion, which completely shuts down the city of all lights and electronics. And in a huge metro like Metropolis, that's going to cause a lot of damage and a lot of panic, as Superman already starts to see helicopters and planes get damaged by the blast. Superman obviously darts into action for the bigger things like planes and helicopters, and while doing so, he contacts Wonder Woman and the Flash for help, who try to get there as fast as possible. I mean, the second he asks for help, the Flash is already there, helping some civilians on the ground. Now, when it comes to some of the vehicles that are plummeting to the depths in Metropolis, I don't believe I made my Wonder Woman capable of flying as of yet. Wonder Woman can obviously jump super far distances, but she won't be that much help when it comes to vehicles in the sky. But what she will be able to help is maybe something terrible happens on freeways or highways or bridges. So while Superman is dealing with things in the sky, you have Flash and Wonder Woman trying to deal with things on the ground. Batman and Alfred are witnessing what is happening in Metropolis, and Batman was actually ready to hop in his jet and head straight on over, until all of a sudden the Bat computer starts giving him a warning of a break-in at Arkham Asylum, which is already something that makes Batman even more interested in, because usually it is a break-out warning. This is a break-in. What is that all about? So while Batman goes off to Arkham Asylum, Superman has already saved a couple of helicopters, but now he's got to deal with a couple of planes that were in Metropolis's air zone. Superman is in a position where there are multiple planes, and he is only one man. He can't stop all these planes in different areas. So if you now rewind just a couple of minutes, Hal Jordan and John Stewart are above Earth patrolling and observing Sector 2814. Being the defenders of that sector, they're always making sure everything is okay. And during this time, they're having discussions on what the Owens plan on doing with the Red Lanterns after their incursion of 2814, and what the Red Lanterns were actually looking for in the first place. As some of you may remember from my Green Lantern movie pitch, they were looking for an ancient battery or the anti-life equation. Still not having the knowledge of the anti-life equation, it is all up to theory to the Green Lanterns. As they're talking about their potential war against the other Lantern Corps, they see this massive EMP explosion from space above Metropolis. This is where the Green Lanterns are not just introduced to Superman, but are introduced to the Justice League. As Superman is saving one plane, he sees 2 other planes free falling from the sky, terrified he's not gonna get there in time, and all of a sudden, rays of green light surround the planes and stop them mid-fall. This is where we have a greeting between Superman, John, and Hal, and eventually this is where they would have a meeting between Wonder Woman and the Flash as well. So while they take care of the city and they all take different sections, we would go back to Lex Luthor, who is creating his brainwashing device on Martian Manhunter. Lex Luthor would see what's happening in Metropolis, and Lex Luthor says Mercy is falling through with my plan completely, but then Giganta and Captain Cold alert him that lanterns have entered the picture, which makes Lex Luthor a little mad, but he is more than confident that with Martian Manhunter's help, they'll be able to defeat the Justice League. So here is where Batman arrives at Arkham, and he speaks to Commissioner Gordon and asks what the hell is going on. And Gordon tells Batman that Shade took Dr. Jonathan Crane to a very specific psychiatric ward. In this psychiatric ward is an area where so far who Batman has met in his rogues gallery are all locked up. Very specifically known to Batman right now is the Joker and Mr. Freeze. Batman is already feeling very cautious the fact that they are in that particular ward. Why would Shade bring Jonathan Crane there? And I'll also mention too, another reason why Batman isn't so ready to go and save Dr. Jonathan Crane. While Luthor was let out of federal prison, he was brought to Arkham Asylum, in which Dr. Jonathan Crane cleared Lex Luthor and allowed him to rejoin the real world. So Batman doesn't really like this guy. Putting some of his personal feelings behind him, Batman races to the particular ward they're in to save Dr. Crane. And when he sees him, Dr. Crane is lying on the ground unconscious, and Shade is nowhere to be seen. As Batman is asking Jonathan Crane if he is okay, Crane answers back, "Indeed I am," but in a very deep, scary voice. And this is where he turns around, his face looks like a scarecrow, and he sprays his toxin in Batman's face. As Batman gets disoriented, he turns around to see Shade right in front of him, and this is where Shade completely blacks out his entire surroundings. His entire perimeter is just blackness. Batman is not just locked in this complete pitch black prison, he is locked in his own fears as well. While at the same time being blind and not being able to see anything, and also seeing hallucinations of his fears, Jonathan Crane is essentially telling him if he allowed Lex Luthor to leave Arkham Asylum and join the real world, Lex would have given him some private funding so that Crane could develop what he's always been trying to develop, this powerful fear toxin, which he has finally done. Of course, this is where Batman is putting together some of the dots, and he's starting to figure out that what's happening here and Metropolis is closely tied together. Batman in this situation is trying to do a lot of things. He's trying to figure out how to escape from this pitch darkness. He's trying to ignore some of his fears, even though it is not successfully working. Batman is hearing Joker laugh, whether that be a fear or whether that be in the actual psychiatric ward they're in is completely up to your interpretation. He's reliving and hearing his thoughts of his parents dying. He's seeing bats everywhere, even while at the same time being in pitch darkness. There is just a lot of mental chaos going on with Batman, as if he doesn't already go through a lot of mental chaos. Batman is trying to contact Superman and Wonder Woman to let them know what's going on, but it's just not working. He's trying to contact Gordon and it's not working. Same thing with Alfred, but you guessed it, not working. Now we briefly return back to Metropolis. They're somewhat getting things under control. The city is still going under a blackout, but the sun is vastly coming down. It's around maybe 8, 9 o'clock at this point. Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart both get this dispatch from Kilowog talking about how there is an urgent meeting about the Sinestro clan. Jon decides to stay and Hal decides to return back to Oa, and that is the last time you will see Hal for this movie. So as Jon briefly gets to know Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash a little bit more, all of a sudden behind them in the distance is a woman who is gradually getting bigger and bigger and bigger and racing towards them. Somehow, she's keeping her running quite quiet as she's making her way through the city. It's not until the last couple of seconds where they turn around and they see Giganta right in front of their face. One punch sending Superman across the city, grabbing Wonder Woman, throwing Green Lantern, and Flash running around trying to escape her massive feat. This is where Captain Cold also comes into the picture and starts trying to chase down Flash. This is a different Captain Cold. He's got a new gun and actually a new power. His gun can shoot at the possible coldest temperature, and his left hand can actually shoot out ice as well, an upgrade that Lex Luthor and Leonard himself both thought of, genetically changing some of his DNA. He is a completely different man now. Racing in with Giganta and Captain Cold is Lex Luthor and Martian Manhunter. This is a Lex who is using a super powered suit like we usually see him use to fight Superman. The reason why Lex Luthor had Shade go to Gotham and Shade and Scarecrow both ambushed Batman in the asylum, it's because Lex Luthor is smart enough to know that Batman is smart enough to be able to figure out a way to defeat the Legion of Doom. Batman may not be able to throw you across a city, but he will know how to stop you in many other ways. Meanwhile, in the asylum, Batman is actually proving to be very difficult to handle. Even though Batman has never dealt with Shade before, he knows of him, hasn't dealt with him, and he's never had to deal with fear toxin like this before. Give him enough time and Batman may have found a way to escape this on his own, but time is not something he has. He needs to escape and get to Metropolis right then and there. So this is where the final Justice League member shows up. Batman finds a way to contact Zatanna. He's realizing that none of his comms are working and he needs to find a way to get Zatanna into Arkham where she can use some of her magical abilities to dispel all this pitch darkness. So Batman takes out his utility belt and he has this very bright white powder that he pours on the ground and he can actually see in the shade. Because he knows a couple of things, he knows a magic spell that can contact Zatanna, and Zatanna will be there as quick as possible. So as Batman draws this spell into the white powder and contacts Zatanna, she shows up at Arkham Asylum and she helps Batman escape from this shade, where she ends up fighting the shade and defeating him. After that conflict is over, Batman finds Jonathan Crane is gone. He was given his chance to escape. He also sees another cell that has been opened with nobody in it. As he looks in this cell, he sees that it was the Joker cell. And when he looks at the ground, it is a Joker card that with a very red and scribbly writing, it says, "See you soon." Batman is now very visibly angry and very frustrated. He takes Shade, throws him in Joker's old cell. As Batman and Zatanna leave Arkham, Mr. Freeze grabs his cell bars and asks Batman to wait, in which Mr. Freeze says to Batman, "Tell Captain Cold I hope the upgrade was worth it." You now get this idea that Mr. Freeze is actually the one who created it for him. Batman and Zatanna now make their way over to Metropolis, where Batman tries to fill in everything with Zatanna because Batman pretty much gets a completely full picture of what is going on. Except the one thing he doesn't know is this Martian Manhunter character. When they arrive to Metropolis, Superman and Lantern are trying to take on Lex Luthor and Martian Manhunter, and whereas Lex Luthor may be someone they can handle, Martian Manhunter is putting up a damn good fight and isn't leaving much breathing room. Wonder Woman is handling Giganta and trying to keep the casualties to a minimum, and Flash is actually finding himself in a situation where he's running away from Captain Cold more than he is fighting him, because if he gets hit by this freeze gun, it's damn near over. So as Batman and Zatanna arrive, they give as much support to each one of these characters as they possibly can. Zatanna tries to help Superman and Lantern against Martian and Lex. Batman helps the Flash with Captain Cold and Wonder Woman with Giganta. Also, just gonna throw this out here just so you guys know, I am a huge Batman Wonder Woman romance guy. In this movie, when they finally see each other again, there would be some banter between the two characters and some clear flirtation with Wonder Woman towards Batman. So skipping some of the fight details here, what we would do is at one point, Martian Manhunter has Superman in a lock. He's got both of his fists and he's pressing down on him. And at this point, Martian just shakes his head in discomfort. He's blinking his eyes and he looks at Superman and he says, "Help me." And Superman looks at him, breaks free from his grasp, and just punches Martian Manhunter and he goes flying. And Superman says to Zatanna, "Something strange just happened. He asked me to help him." And then Zatanna does some magical spell where she taps into the mind of Martian Manhunter and she can see that he is brainwashed. So now they have to get this chip that's buried in the neck of Martian Manhunter, but the problem is he's so powerful, it's hard to kind of get to the chip without flat out killing him. And this is exactly why Lex Luthor did not want Batman there, because Batman, of course, finds out that Martian Manhunter's weakness is fire. Batman concocts some plan to expose Martian Manhunter to fire, in which some of the members find a way to get the chip out of his neck, knocking off the brainwashing from Lex Luthor. Once again, sparing some of the fight details, they do defeat Captain Cold, Giganta, and now Lex Luthor, in which Martian Manhunter does actually help them do, and he also expressed interest in joining this Justice League. The Justice League is official. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, John Stewart, Green Lantern, Zatanna, and Martian Manhunter. So at the end of this battle, Batman remains in Metropolis to find a way to get the city's power online. John Stewart leaves Earth to briefly return to Oa to see why Hal Jordan was called back. Flash returns to Central City to find out the Mirror Master technology has been stolen from his apartment. Wonder Woman gets a call from Steve Trevor asking her for some help, and Zatanna returns to Metropolis to look after the proper arrest of Shade at the request of Batman. Superman overlooks the arrest of Lex Luthor very closely, while Martian Manhunter stays behind to help Superman with the arrest and to help Batman with any sort of repairs that is possibly in need of repair. What would happen at the very end of this film is it would lead us into a cliffhanger. As Superman loads Lex Luthor into a SWAT van, Luthor breaks free of his handcuffs and extracts a small Kryptonian knife, in which he cuts Superman's chest and then stabs Superman in one of his legs. The SWAT team ends up knocking Lex Luthor in the head and dropping him to his knees, whereas Superman rips the kryptonite out of his leg, and Luthor basically tells him that there's probably some very small kryptonite fragments that have now been lodged into his skin. So he will not be able to heal properly until all the kryptonite fragments are gone. And then Lex Luthor says, "Good luck saving the city," or should I say, 2 cities. At that facility that he found Martian Manhunter in, Luthor rigged 2 nukes to attack 2 cities, one being Metropolis and one being another city. Who knows if it's an American city? Who knows if it's somewhere else in Europe or Africa or Asia? The movie ending with this city in panic, Superman suffering from kryptonite, and Batman and Martian Manhunter staying behind to help him. They now need to figure out how to stop these 2 nukes from going off. That is how I will end this Justice League idea. I'm sure there are a ton of Easter eggs that would be plastered throughout this film. There would be no end credit scene though. Everything that is needed to be said for this movie was said, We will just need to see what happens moving forward. But that is it for this movie idea. I have a ton of Batman ideas. I have a ton of Trinity and World's Finest ideas. I have a ton of Justice League ideas, and all of them are just vastly different from one another. This story just well suits the world that I have already been building for you guys. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought, and also let me know what other characters you would like to see movie pitches for. But that is all I have for you on this one, everyone. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.